When I found out I was going to be a parent, I immediately felt a lot of anxiety and worry. So I went on to BetterHelp to try to look for a therapist to help me with that.
My relationship with my family and with my boyfriend and with myself were suffering. I really needed help.
I was ruminating a lot. Really getting those thoughts out to a therapist and getting feedback was just life-changing.
Discover what BetterHelp Online Therapy can do for you. Visit BetterHelp.com today.
Aprovecha los DeWalt Deals en Lowe's. Obtén gratis una herramienta DeWalt Selecta de 20 voltios max al comprar un kit de batería de 5 amperios hora y 20 voltios max selecto. Además, lleva gratis una batería adicional DeWalt de 20 voltios y 8 amperios hora al comprar una sierra ingletadora compuesta DeWalt de doble bisel de 10 pulgadas y 20 voltios max. Nuestra mejor selección está aquí en Lowe's. Válido hasta 6/24 hasta agotar existencia. Selección varía por lugar.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So, what's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
Welcome to the Irish NFL Show on the Believe Network, brought to you in association with QuinBet. Well, it's quite likely the height of the summer here in Ireland, with the hot weather forecast to last a week at the time we're recording now, and the longest day of the year just behind us. So it feels entirely appropriate that we continue our summer previews of the 8 NFL divisions and each of the 32 teams with a trip to a hot and spicy AFC West, or at least an AFC West that promises to be hot and spicy in the season ahead. Brian O'Leary, Kieran Boyle and Kieran O'Donovan here with me, Conor Brophy, as we break down the division won last year by the Denver Broncos. We start, though, with the team that finished bottom of the pack and ended up with the number 1 overall pick in the draft, the Las Vegas Raiders. Kieran Boyle. Pete Carroll came in to the coaching job last year, brought Geno Smith with him from Seattle, and we didn't necessarily expect that the Raiders were going to make some miraculous run to the Super Bowl, but I don't think any of us were sitting here thinking that they'd end up with a 3-14 record and looking just hopeless at times during the last season. Any reasons to expect that things will be better this time around? I think, to be fair, there probably are one or two.
Well, I mean, getting rid of Pierce, bringing Carroll in, drafting Genty, there's a little bit of optimism in Vegas. But, I think when people started looking around the roster and looking at the paper thin nature of it, I mean, some of those results, I mean, that offense was last in total offense and points scored. I think they averaged 14.2 a game. It just became apparent fairly quickly that was not a team that was well constructed. And the pressure was on Carroll all season. The Raiders couldn't wait to get rid of him in January. It was just a mutual parting of the ways. It didn't work. It was one last hurrah for Carroll, but there was good intentions, obviously. Spytek is on the cusp of building something.
Which sounds like the quote from Pulp Fiction. We got into this thing with the best of intentions.
Well, Spytek definitely had the best of intentions, and obviously we've seen with Mr. Brady the last 12 months come into the picture too, that they believe there's a lot of bright things that are coming down the strip in Vegas. But I'm afraid, they regressed from 24. They went from 4-13 to 3-14. Missed the playoffs for the 21st time out of 23, or the 21st season out of 23. The only bright spot was getting Mendoza, the Mandalorian. I mean, that's really what Spytek is kind of hanging his hat on now with this franchise and building from that position up. Just a tough season last year. I mean, out goes Geno Smith, Kenny Pickett. Not a huge amount of big names going out. They do make some splashes, bringing in Tyler Linderbaum, although a no line that was as porous and as badly performing as that is going to need a lot more than a free agent center to shore that up. Overall, I could go on and on, but the team suffered from a lack of talent. That's really it. They had no line to block to block for Genty. Geno Smith had one of the worst years of his career. Paper thin wide receiver room. Defense, they had Max Crosby with some highlight plays, but when you look across, especially the secondary, it was just not a great outfit. The D fairly hung in there a little bit. I think they were ranked kind of mid-table, 14th, 15th out of 32 total D, but they allowed 317 points. 317 total yards per game. You don't win any games in the NFL or any kind of league allowing that amount of yardage. And they gave up 25 again, giving up 25.4 points per game. You're always going to be in a really bad spot with that. So a really tough year for Vegas. For them, I mean, obviously picking up Mendoza and where he goes, when he starts. Will he start straight away? Doubtful. When does he come in? And will it be a similar situation like Jackson Dart in New York, where you have a veteran free agent who's in there just to keep the seat warm? And when will Spytek get trigger happy? When will Kubiak feel the pressure? And when will he say, all right, I need him out there. We got to make this thing happen yesterday. So a lot of questions in Vegas, but it's another rebuild year, really. Not as dire a situation, I wothink, as the Cardinals and the Dolphins, which we spoke about earlier, but still. And then you also have the health questions surrounding Crosby, Jermod McCoy, the draft pick. So there's a huge amount of questions in Vegas. It's not really going to come together this year, but there are a lot of bright spots, and it'll be a couple of years before this starts coming together.
And yes, Kieran O'Donovan. Kieran Boyle mentions Fernando Mendoza, the Nandalorian. That's a name he wants to copyright, and good luck with that one, Fernando, because Disney might have something to say about that. Looks like they do have something to say about that, and they own ESPN, which in turn owns NFL Network. So I choose my words carefully and choose my lawyers even more carefully on that one. But I digress, Kieran, because there are a lot of reasons to be cheerful, to be fair. And if Fernando Mendoza is the guy, I mean, we talk about dysfunctional franchises doing dysfunctional things, and Lord knows the Raiders have fallen into that bracket more often than not in recent history. But they got arguably the best coach on the market in Clint Kubiak, just off the back of winning a Super Bowl with the Seattle Seahawks. This year's Ben Johnson, potentially. They've got Brock Bowers, they got Ashton Genty, they got Max Crosby after the will he, won't he, no he didn't transfer saga during the early part of the offseason. And if they have something in Mendoza, and if this new coaching staff lives up to expectations, who knows, they might just be a little bit of a dark horse. The prediction markets have them in as winning no more than 5 games this year, but you don't have to squint too hard to see optimism in among the bright lights of Las Vegas.
No, and I think if this was the AFC South, you might be able to trick yourself into thinking that they might be able to sneak the division if everything goes their way. But this is the AFC West, and unfortunately,
just a great thing to be able to say about all of the shit teams this year. If only they were in the AFC South, they might actually have.
Here I'm working on moving teams across states.
What I'm trying to say is that they're further along than the Cardinals, who we kind of we shat all over last week with the 3 men and a little lady reference, but I wouldn't quite put them in that bracket. But in a division as strong as the AFC West, look, there's no point in us sitting here and pretending that we think that they're going to get out of that division, because that's going to be a tricky task for each of the 4 teams actually that we're going to speak about tonight. But I totally agree. I think that they are definitely, I mean, it couldn't get much worse than it got last year. But as you said, you win the sweepstakes, you're in with who is perceived to be a generational quarterback in Fernando Mendoza. I actually think they did quite good business as well in bringing in Kirk Cousins, because he's not a guy that's going to go in and ruffle feathers. You see him there doing all the Step Brothers skits. I mean, he's going to make Mendoza feel completely at home. He's going to, he's an amicable guy. He's an absolute pro in terms of his preparation as well. He's squeaky
guy who thinks putting grenadine in your Coke during the season is pushing the boat out a little bit. Oh, might have had me one or too many Roy Rogers.
Yeah, but from what I've seen of Fernando Mendoza, they seem to be kindred spirits in that regard. I think squeaky clean seems to be the order of the day. I think the goal for the Raiders is to surpass that 5-game mark. I think there's a possibility that these guys might win 7 or 8 games, and if they do, I mean, you could put that down as a huge success for Kubiak coming in from the Seahawks in his first season as a head coach with the Raiders. I think they definitely have the talent across the board to build on. I mean, you still have one of the best tight ends in Brock Bowers, a generational tight end on offense. You're probably lacking a little bit in terms of weapons for Mendoza or Cousins or whoever it is to throw the ball to, bar that tight end. I think you're going to be heavily dependent on that. But you want to see what the O-line does. You want to see what Linderbaum and the few other bodies that they brought in on the O-line does to shore things up. Because as we said, it couldn't have been much worse last year. We didn't get to see what Janty could be We got the absolute worst version of Geno Smith. So you give those guys a little bit of extra protection, give them a few seconds, move a few bodies around, and maybe you see what you can get with Genti. And I think that's the key to timing the introduction of Mendoza as well, is see how comfortable you can make him. I mean, if he's going to be on his ass after 2 seconds every week, there's absolutely no point in having him out there. So the first 3 to 4 weeks, I think, is to see if you can solidify that O-line, see what kind of time you can buy your quarterback, and then maybe introduce him. I don't think there's any point in leaving him on the bench too late either, if he is as cerebral a talent as they're saying. I mean, it doesn't sound like a guy that's going to need extra weeks to learn the playbook. So, yeah, I mean, are they going to win the division? No. Are they going to make the playoffs? No, I highly doubt it. But are they going to make strides this year? Absolutely. And I think the biggest impact they can have on the division is the 1 or 2 games that they may take off some of these contenders. And they could very, very well have a big say in who comes out of this division, even if it's not themselves.
Brian, the other potential advantage that the Raiders have is Tom Brady on the books. Carol mentioned his name very quickly in passing there earlier, but he's been speaking about the Raiders and what happened last season and what he hopes will happen this season.
Tom Brady on the books. You're not referring to the Tampa Bay books by any chance? No, kind of haven't won a Super Bowl there. No, all joking aside, yeah, he did a very detailed interview on the overlap. It's probably well worth watching for anybody who has an interest in Tom Brady and his career. But in particular, I was quite surprised by the level of openness he was about speaking about the Raiders. And he actually didn't, throw Pete Carroll or anybody from the former coaching staff under the bus. In fact, he said the entire organization as a whole was very wrong last year, from top to bottom, including himself. He went in. It's an eye-opener when you're a player and then you go into this position of power in an organization. You think things are going to be seamless, and then you'll quickly transition into that world. So he's found it a bit jarring in terms of the enormity of what's involved. But he said from top to bottom last year, everything essentially was a shit show. And he talks about expectations for the season. He wouldn't put a number on it. He kind of just described the team as having to be playing better towards the back end of the season, which essentially means the team is working and moving in the right direction for the upcoming season. Interesting about Mendoza, he said the great thing is, from his experience in the NFL across the board, no matter what team you're with, you might be the first pick of the first round, but by September, nobody in the team really remembers that. They just see you as another player that can come in and contribute towards the team. In terms of draft picks, actually, I like some of the other ones. I know McCoy was touted as a first-round pick. He went late because of injury concerns. Malik Benson, Kieran probably know more than me about his Oregon days as a wide receiver, but a lot expected of him. He went, I think, in the 3rd round. They have done some nice things. And then, Conor, we speak every year about teams who go into free agency. Okay, you've got a lot of cap space, but they actually went after a lot of experienced players that know how to win in the league.
You took the words right out of my mouth, because I'm just refreshing myself here, looking back at the roster additions during free agency. As you said, not only did they have a lot of cap room, they had more cap space than any other team in the league. They brought in the Kobe Dean, Quay Walker, Jermod McCoy, Kwity Paye. These are all guys you would expect to contribute at a high level immediately.
Yeah, and arguably the best centre in the league, Tyler Linderbaum, obviously coming on a huge expansive contract. He'll be protecting the Mendoza at some stage. I'm actually, wouldn't say concerned about Cousins.
There won't be a buffet safe in Vegas, the money they're paying that lad.
He is well looked after for his days and forever and a day. Cousins is probably in a different space now, but a couple of years ago he went into Atlanta. He was really disappointed by the fact that Michael Penix was selected. We watched the quarterback series where essentially he didn't own up to the fact that he was injured for
Can we put out a plea here, just while you bring it up, that he's not involved in another quarterback series? We've seen that movie twice now. We don't need a three-piece.
He's now in the pictures. Is it Josh Allen this off-season? I can't recall. I saw the names a few weeks ago. It's Josh Allen and 2 others, and they were going off the tangent. I also was taken back by how involved Brady is. That's probably me being a bit naive, obviously, if he's a stakeholder, but there was this conversation about the fact that he's not a huge stakeholder in the grand scheme of things, and he's got his Fox contract, and I suppose the conflict of interest there. But judging by the nature of that interview, he is actively involved in everything that's going on. And he said he speaks to Mendoza on a daily basis in terms of supporting him before he gets his opportunity to play in the league. So I think it's an interesting year ahead. You've got to manage expectations, but it can't be any worse than last year, with all due respect to the Raiders and to their fan base. It has to get better, surely. And I think they've done some nice things this offseason. I think actually agree with Kieran. They're not going to win it, but it's not against the realms of possibility that they shock a few teams over the course of the season and actually disrupt what we think would be the pecking order come the end of the season in the AFC West.
have too many tools? Shop DeWalt deals at Lowe's. Get a free Select DeWalt 20-volt max power tool when you buy a Select 20-volt max 5-amp-hour battery kit. Plus, get a free additional DeWalt 20-volt max 8-amp-hour battery when you buy a DeWalt 10-inch 20-volt max dual-bevel compounded miter saw. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid through 6/24 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.